It's time to end the political correctness and just come out and say it. Radical Islam is the biggest threat freedom faces, bar none. It's the biggest threat to Western values, to democracy, to liberalism, because it seeks a strictly homogeneous world, a global caliphate under Allah, urging Muslims to engage in jihad. Do you know what hijrah is? It's literally jihad by immigration. It's when their leaders encourage the masses to engage in civilizational jihad, changing the character of a nation slowly, over time, changing its people and its values. It's nothing less than stealth invasion via immigration, including refugee resettlement. Radical Islam means playing the long game. And the concept of the melting pot so cherished by progressives is of zero interest to radical Muslims. In fact, it's the exact opposite of what they're trying to achieve. Western leadership has ignored this threat, even though radical Islamists are very clear about their intentions, and they say it for everyone to hear. The West is always seeking to accommodate and compromise, to avoid or minimize conflict, and believe that humans are reciprocal creatures. If we're nice to them, they'll be nice to us. But it's wrong. The missionaries of radical Islam are taking full advantage of the West's tolerance and love of freedom and our fear of offending. Political correctness just creates moral confusion in Western culture and encourages people not to see the obvious. So let me be clear. Radical Islam is a deadly form of fanaticism that is totally focused on winning by any means necessary. And in this asymmetric battle, the West is positioned to lose, as we're currently seeing. Europe is paying the price for their naivete and cowardice when they ignored the very real threat on their doorstep that has been there for decades. Radical Islam there is penetrating their streets, their schools, their homes, and now their governments. The West is reluctant to confront this evil, preferring to appease and accommodate, which means that in time, free thinkers will be outnumbered. This problem is global, and the world is paralyzed by fear. We Jews may be the canary in the coal mine, but we're just first in line. Consider the mass shootings in Oslo in June 2022. People called it an act of Islamist terrorism. Or the 5 teenagers arrested in April of this year in Germany for plotting an Islamist-motivated terror attack. Or this, the 12-year-old French girl raped by 3 teenagers because she was Jewish and called a dirty Jew as it was happening. On top of all this, there's been an explosion of angry, unruly, violent pro-Hamas demonstrations that the world has been seeing, where they're portraying the butchering and raping of Jews as a kind of joyous liberation. It's scary, and Europe has been in a kind of post-war stupor for nearly 8 decades, and even today the people in charge seem to have trouble mustering any energy at all when it comes to defending their national interests, or more broadly, those of the West. It's deplorable, and it won't stop until leaders with integrity and courage step up. It's time to deal with radical Islam, difficult as it will be, offensive to many as it might seem, and we need to support the few courageous moderate Muslims who proclaim not in our name, and the civilized world, yes, wants to see hundreds of thousands of moderate Muslims in streets around the world protesting these sick jihadist radicals. We need to hear peace-loving Muslims proclaiming loudly, no more beheadings, no more gay men being thrown from the rooftops, no more women being sold into slavery and being forced to hide their faces, no more entering churches, temples, and synagogues to murder worshippers. And if we don't see or hear them standing up for democracy, for decency, free speech, and basic human rights, then they have to explain why they're so quiet as radical Islamist attack after radical Islamist attack is shrugged off. Enough. For the sake of peace, for the sake of all our children, for the sake of all that is decent.